Rosselli Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Rosselli Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo, as always, with you. Jim Sinicropi and Kyle Evans as well. Victory Tuesday here in the studio. We recap the Buffalo Bills slaughtering of the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football, 47-10. We also got a couple headlines to touch on as well throughout the week and preview Week 4 against the Ravens in Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. The Bills staying in the primetime spotlight this upcoming week. Guys, good to see you. Vibes are great. The Bills 3-0 and in pretty convincing fashion.
Yeah, were the Jaguars even trying last night?
Oof.
I mean, for real. With all the talent they have on offense and all the backups that the Bills had on defense, and they looked like that, I woke up this morning, I still can't believe 47-10. Like, this is the NFL. You would think they would at least, make it more competitive. I mean, 34-3 at halftime. It was just such a dominant performance. I mean, Josh Allen didn't really even have to play in the second half. Yeah. I think he only attempted 3 passes. So, yeah, just completely dominant.
He had a huge game with 4 touchdown passes, 260 yards, 44 on the ground.
All in the first half.
Yep. And going into the week, a lot of gambling pundits were picking the Jags, and you go back to last year when Buffalo lost to Jacksonville, and it seemed like a kind of maybe a possible donut type of game for the Bills. Monday Night Football, Jags coming in. Jags needed the win more than the Bills did, and if you're a Buffalo fan, it was a great night.
Yeah, I think the only negative would be the Tyler Bass missed extra point. I mean,
Yeah,
for real,
that's
maybe
the
giving up
only-
the touchdown in the third quarter, I guess, or was that
Yeah.
early fourth? But, I mean, it's still, look at the score.
Yeah.
It was nearly a perfect night on every single category.
10 different Bills receivers caught a pass.
Yep.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of good storylines from the game as well. Perhaps there was one other negative, Kyle, but we'll get to that because that's more of one of the headlines throughout the week I kind of had marked down more so than anything else. Yeah, I forget what the actual stat of it is, though, but it's like underdogs on prime time of more than 5 points for, I forget what it was going back to last season. I know it was something like 14-2-1 or something like that. So at least in
Against the spread?
yeah, like there was, the math was there, but I mean,
I laid off the game,
Yeah.
but my gut feeling was, Bills are probably going to win. They're home Monday night. But I laid off because of all stats like that and just the way the NFL is. The Carolina Panthers killed the Raiders last week on Sunday, and all these, and the Commanders
yes, sir.
went into Cincinnati, beat the Bengals. So
Broncos blew out the Bucks.
yeah, I mean, there's all these crazy results. So you're just a little tentative to think that this was going to be an easy win for the Bills, and it sure was.
Yeah. I don't know what fully the Jaguars have going on. I've started to develop one of my working theories of the NFL season here involving Alabama and Clemson quarterbacks across football here, but I don't know what the hell happened to Trevor Lawrence, but he does not look good. But on the contrary,
How many sacks
Josh-
the Bills have? 4?
5.
5 sacks. I mean,
Yeah.
they sacked him 5 times. They didn't touch Josh Allen.
No. And that's the thing. I mean, Josh Allen, I think, offensively here is by far and away the star of the night. I mean, it was, I don't know about classic Josh because I think this was the best he's ever really looked, if I'm being quite honest. I don't know if that's just maybe in the moment overreaction of sort, but like he just looked like he was just on such a different level last night. That and this was a question I was going to pose maybe here in a couple minutes to you guys, but since I'm here right now, I'll ask it. To me, he's got to be the front runner for the MVP at this point, right? I mean, obviously, way early season type stuff here, but to me, now we're 3 weeks through. We have this at least a little bit of a notebook built right across the league. He's the only one consistently through the 3 weeks of the year who's led his team to victories and has done it well.
You got to ask yourself, if you're an NFL owner and they were reshuffling the league and you had the number one pick, to start fresh, would you take Josh Allen or would you take, C.J. Stroud or Patrick Mahomes? I mean, Allen's in the conversation. And, performance like last night, he seemed like he'd be the clear number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might have been his best game, but then I think about that perfect Patriots playoff game 2 years ago when they also scored 47 and they scored on every single drive. But yeah, no doubt, I think he's a front runner. We've seen a lot of bad quarterbacks through the first 3 weeks. A lot of turnovers where Josh did have that fumble in the first half of the Cardinals game, but hasn't thrown an interception. Mahomes, Lamar, C.J. Stroud, they've all thrown multiple. So I think right now, if you're picking the quarterback, you would go Josh. But obviously in the long term, and obviously with all the playoff success, you would go still Patrick Mahomes. And he's still the greatest in the league. But right now, week 3, after the end of week 3, I'm taking Josh.
Yeah, and the way that script flips is come January and February, Allen beats Mahomes either in a playoff game in Buffalo or at Arrowhead and, wins a Super Bowl. That's the one thing that's been eluding the Bills, obviously, but also Josh Allen in terms of being like elite of the elite. You got to do it in the postseason. We're not going to find out about that for a long time. And I don't know if anybody of us that really think that the Bills are just going to cruise through the regular season. It's, 18 regular season games now or 17 games.
Yeah.
Go 17-0. They look good. They're tied with they're one game up on the Jets.
Yep.
Yeah, one game up on the Jets in the AFC East, 2 games up on the other teams that are basically, the Dolphins aren't going to compete for the East now, and obviously the Patriots are. So now it's a 2-team race in the East. Aaron Rodgers against, Josh Allen. It's a good storyline going forward.
Yeah.
For sure for the rest of the season. The Bills really have gotten off to a great start. We didn't anticipate it.
No.
One of 5 teams to start 3-0.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to even rank the 5 teams because the Steelers are just beyond overrated. The Chiefs, they've gotten very lucky. That pass interference on 4th and 16. Isaiah Likely stepped out of bounds in the opener.
Otherwise,
they're inches away from literally being 1-2.
I agree.
The Vikings do look very good. Their defense is swarming, very good. And the Seahawks, let's see them play some better teams.
Yeah.
But I guess you could say the same for the Bills, though. The Cardinals did look decent, but the Dolphins, they were awful. The Jaguars, they're 0-3. They've looked bad. So, I think the true test for the Bills is coming up.
But there is an element of I always say it and it's cliched, but they've handled business against the teams they're supposed to handle business against from what we have seen so far this year at this point. I look for what we know about Jacksonville now. Like Brett's probably the outcome we maybe should have expected. Maybe not exactly 47 points or anything like that, but domination should have probably been more expected for what we know now about the team.
Well, let's face it. We figure with Allen at the helm, the offense was going to be top tier, even losing Diggs. And how about Gabe Davis watching from the from the other opposing team's bench last night?
They swarmed him the one time.
But the defense
Yeah.
has been, the bright spot. Just as much as the offense, the defense has been outstanding. And that was the big question mark. We thought that Bills would need to win in shootouts, but, if they only needed 11 points to win last night.
I got a crazy stat.
47.
Since trailing 17-3 in the second quarter of Week 1 against the Cardinals, the Bills have outscored their opponents. This is not a typo. 109-31.
Yeah.
And they've given up the 7th fewest points in the NFL.
And that includes the Cardinals?
And includes remember they were trailing 17-3 in the second quarter, so they scored right before halftime. I'm including that touchdown, the third and fourth quarter, and then the rest of the games. So just completely dominant. And I mean, again, you look at the names. I don't know how they're doing this. How did they stop Jacksonville's receivers last night?
Damar Hamlin had a moment last night. We were saying that we were kind of smirking that he was going to be starting for the Bills in safety position, and how that just didn't seem like a top above average NFL safety, and he's been doing good. He had a big interception last night.
They shut down Tyreek. They shut down Marvin Harrison, who looks unstoppable since that Bills game.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, how are they, like, Jalen Waddle, like, look at all the speed they've shut down. It's wild to think about. But again, it's early, and you're just afraid that one bad game is coming. And could it be against Baltimore this Sunday night? Hopefully not.
It'll be a different kind of game for them this Sunday for sure. Different kind of team than they faced so far. Different challenges for the defense, and
Derrick Henry's tough.
yeah,
And all over Dallas.
Yeah, it's going to be a different type of game Sunday. I'm sure we'll preview it, Paul, at the end of the show. But it's exciting to go into that game at 3-0, and knowing what a big test it is. If they can pass that test, how everybody in Buffalo is going to be out of their minds.
Yeah. We'll obviously get to that here in a little bit for Baltimore, anyway, because they're also a working theory for me in the NFL this year. So, let's go back to Damar Hamlin for a second, though. First career interception, ends up being one of probably the top two storylines of the night in all of football, quite frankly. He even addressed it, obviously, in this post-game press availability. Talked about how the last time he was on Monday Night Football as an active player, we all knew what happened and all saw what happened. So a little bit of an obviously nice full circle type moment in a sense, or rather closing of the circle for him. And look, he's looked pretty good, all things considered, out there. I know it's probably one of those things where maybe the expectation is a little bit lower given what we maybe know about the secondary and what the defense as a whole is kind of going through.
I don't know, man. They throw you out there as a as a starting safety in the NFL. The expectation's always going to be high.
Yeah.
And I think he's obviously exceeded what we thought he could do so far through 3 games.
Yeah. And it's a matter of, too, I think he's looked better as each game has gone on.
Yep.
Obviously he was involved in the Tua hit on week 2 Thursday Night Football, but the same token, we were also talking about him being within one of the top tacklers as well in that game. And then fast forward to this game, a little bit different. He's not maybe at the true top of the tackle chart, but an interception involved in a lot of the plays. I mean, it appears to be a guy who's really getting that confidence underneath him and can now really take the next meaningful steps in development as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think playing time too is the biggest thing, because he wasn't an every week starter earlier in his career. He's more of a backup, like I said, special teams. So maybe just more playing time and more experience are even helping him. But yeah, he's been great, and I thought Christian Benford was probably the most impressive corner last night. Very good. Yeah. And even Balin Spector making plays at the goal line, and just Balin Spector, 6th-round draft pick, stopping the Jaguars.
Douglas.
Rasul was good on Gabe Davis, stopping him in the red zone.
Secondary that was really sus. Remember, they lost Tre'Davious White. Remember when
Poyer.
he came in, and Poyer was like a kind of the heart and soul of that secondary. And Tre'Davious White, although he spent a lot of time on injured reserve, came into the league. I mean, was he a 1st-round draft pick?
I think he was 1st or 2nd, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was like, now we're filling this place. There are all these, not, I want to call them also Rands, but just kind of guys that anybody in the league could have picked off, late round pick or free agent pickup and stuff like that. So kudos to the Bills management and to Coach Sean McDermott.
And how about Von Miller? 3 straight games with a sack.
Back.
You can just tell the energy's there. He's getting off the line quicker. And I said in the preseason that was my difference maker. Him and Ed Oliver, Greg Russo, can apply more pressure this year, and they certainly did. 5 sacks on Trevor Lawrence. They got to Kyler Murray a few times. Obviously, they got the Dolphins, I think, 6 times. So, yeah, the defensive line's even been impressive too.
Yeah. Von Miller sack was his only tackle of the night last night, but I mean they were just wreaking havoc along the front end last night. I mean you don't get 5 total tackles and the stuff that they were doing by accident in that sense. The interesting one on defense I thought last night, Greg Rousseau was just kind of statistically absent, but I mean Jacksonville was spending a lot of time more or less double teaming him in a way that I think kind of freed up a bunch of different options for other Bills guys to get in there. You mentioned Jamarcus Ingram a little bit, Von Miller, Javon Solomon, Casey Toohill had a sack and a fumble recovery. AJ Epinesa also had a sack. I mean, it kind of, a couple of guys that we've talked about before on here throughout the past year and a half now. Other guys, we've first time really mentioning them, Just one of those things where everything was kind of clicking. Dorian Williams, again, led the team with tackles, by the way, last night. So things were looking really good on defense. We didn't talk a ton about the offense exactly outside of Josh Allen. But James Cook, again, leading the way rushing, even though for the most part didn't really make a difference who did what. Rather, Josh Allen led the way with rushing. Cook led the way with running backs rushing, 39 yards and a touchdown. Also had 4 receptions for 48 yards. Ray Davis had 22 yards on the ground with a touchdown, or with a reception as well. Ray Davis had a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 72 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid, 41 yards and a touchdown. Ty Johnson also involved on both sides of the ball. Kind of a combo of everybody involved on offense as well last night.
Yeah, this is my favorite part about the offense this year is everyone's getting the ball. The Bills have had 6 different players score a touchdown. That's the most in the NFL. The Steelers or the Saints have 5. So it just goes to show you that he is spreading the ball around. And then against Miami, it was more run heavy, and then this was pass heavy. It just shows that the Bills can do either one of those games and be successful. James Cook doesn't need to have this huge game like he did in week 2. The Bills still won by a ton because they opened up the passing game. Josh Allen finally attempted 30 passes, which again he would have had way more if he played in the second half.
It was close, yeah.
So yeah, I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing with the offense, and they're the highest scoring team in the NFL. The Saints are second. The Bills and the Saints are the only ones that have over 100 points this year. The next is the Vikings, who are at 85. Look at the gap there. The Vikings are third at 85. Just wild what's going on with the Saints and the Bills offense right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hope that there's not some disappointment from the receiving corps when, Keon Coleman did have a touchdown, but 1 reception. I'm sure he hopes to be more involved. Curtis Samuel had 3 receptions for 22 yards. Definitely not making a huge impact coming over. Matt Collins, after the first big week, had 1 reception for 16 yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 1 reception for 7 yards. On the bright side, Kincaid was a little more involved, with a touchdown and 3 receptions. But Khalil Shakir is like their number 1 guy. He's like the Puka Nacua
Yards after catch.
Bills, yeah. And so good to see. He had 6 receptions for a touchdown, 72 yards. Lots of options out there. No true, stud. Like, so long, Stephon Diggs. Nobody's missing you.
Yeah, that's seriously how it feels right now.
Yeah.
And the way the offense looks. And Shakir actually has been targeted 27 times in a row, dating back to last year, and has caught every single ball. He's 27 for 27.
Really?
The record's 29, but I don't know who it was. I saw it this morning. So he could potentially break the record. He's been automatic. He catches everything that comes his way.
27 straight targets that he actually
He's caught. Yep.
That's amazing.
He had a drop yesterday, but the flag took it away. So his streak still lives on.
Nice.
Yep.
So watch that early on in the Baltimore game next Sunday night.
Yep.
He needs 2 more.
I wonder if he even knows it. He probably doesn't. He just goes and does his job. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, and again, that's become a theme of this Bills team is, no superstars, but everybody's a superstar. Like no huge names outside of Josh Allen on offense or defense, but they're all getting the job done. True team effort, which, led by Josh Allen, and that's the type of team you can really get behind as a fan.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on here. I do want to talk a couple different headlines that have kind of come out through the week. You mentioned Keon Coleman, Jim, and noticeably absent. He was in the first quarter yesterday. comes out post game, it was because it was disciplinary. He's being late. They held him out for disciplinary. I can't even.
Disciplinary.
Thank you. Can't
He
even
was
talk
late?
today.
He
Yeah.
was late for.
It didn't say what he was late for, but he was just late, and Sean McDermott said he wanted to prove a point and use this as a teaching lesson.
Good, yeah, I mean, he's got to.
And I guess he did because he sat the first quarter and then caught that touchdown.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Well,
don't be late.
I still feel like he's the one that can really emerge as, their top threat on offense, aside from Shakir, and being that, true number one receiver for the Bills. So, but, that can be something that can develop as the season goes on. And so, yeah, if he's showing up late and not taking it seriously, I'm glad that he was disciplined, and hopefully, when we get towards playoff time, he emerges as, a true NFL 1 or 2 wide receiver.
Yeah. And then the other one is Tyler Bass. Now, 2 for 2 on field goals, but 5 or 6 extra points. It was blocked, but everything looked good outside of him connecting with the ball for the most part. And I don't know fully here what the Bills are going to fully do. We know that they do like him, but they did bring in kickers last week to work out, as we know. Is there any sort of pressure here now lingering on him for, his job, do we think? Or
I see him in a real pressure situation and see if he can drill it down the middle. I mean, he kicked 6 extra points. Like, everybody's going to miss one. It's not your grandfather's extra point from the 17-yard kick. It's longer. It's more like a mid-range field goal, and you miss some every now and then. So when you kick 6 of them and you miss one, not a big deal. Didn't really play into it, but I think so far it's been a good start to the season for Tyler Bass.
Yeah, I definitely think they're, going to keep a close eye on him and pay attention. But I also think that they can still bring in a kicker and sign him to the practice squad and elevate him on game day if they're really that worried. Like, they don't actually have to just cut Tyler Bass and get rid of him.
But don't you think that Bass has done is fine? Like, in terms of like the concerns that people had heading into the season, don't you think he's been okay?
Yeah, I definitely think he could have been worse. I think the one problem was the kickoff in the season opener.
Yeah.
And then that one in Miami, it wasn't tipped, as everyone thought. It went way wide left, even though the game was out of reach. And then the extra point last night. So, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been awful like some of these other
2
kickers.
for field goals last night, 5 or 6 for extra points, right?
Yep. So, yeah, he hasn't been the worst. So, I don't really know. I guess, like I said, maybe it's just insurance, like sign another kicker to the practice squad in case something gets out of hand before these other guys get taken by another team.
Yeah, I mean, Bass went out there 8 times last night and converted 7 of the 8. I mean, nobody's perfect. No kicker in the NFL is perfect.
And they signed him to an extension. He's signed through 2027. So, again, I don't think they'd move on from him. If anything, they would just sign one to the practice squad and elevate him if they need.
If Bass happens to go sideways.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting because to me, I don't know. I guess not to fully play devil's advocate, but I feel like I got to here. If you're not concerned though, I don't know why they brought in people to work out a few days ago, more or less, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
something's up, but maybe.
Well, if they did bring him in to work out, maybe don't you think last night kind of quelled those fears?
Yeah, he probably fixed their concern by.
That's the way it felt to me.
I don't know.
And somebody mentioned this. I mean, I don't really know. I wasn't really looking that deep into it, but they said he was kicking with more intensity, and I'm like, what? Like, what?
He's really
they
going
said he
after
was
the
running
ball.
in harder and kicking the ball harder. I'm like, what? Like, that's what you watch for?
Absolutely, yeah.
The only kicker in my lifetime, anyway, that I know of that would be able to amp something up like that would be Janikowski, but he was just a
He's one
nut
of
job.
them, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my team in Washington, for an example here, I mean, they started the year with Cade York. Things didn't go great. Worked out a guy and immediately signed him. And
That's the one they worked out. One of them, Cade York.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Hey, I'm just kind of wondering. Kickers are like pitchers. Things get weird and happen fast. And
Well, of all the positions in the NFL, other than quarterback, I believe that the kicker has the most pressure because they don't,
No,
they're,
they might have more pressure.
yeah, they're not tackling. They're not, they go out there. Everybody else did all the hard work, and now they're counting on you just to do something that everybody thinks is automatic.
Yeah.
And it's not automatic. And so, I liken it to like a, 3-foot putt in golf. It's something that you're supposed to make, but anybody that golfs know that it's not that easy. And so for the kickers, it's mostly mental. And if you've Tyler Bass or you feel like people don't have confidence in you, I mean, that can screw you up. So I'm behind Tyler Bass. We'll see how it goes going forward, but he's my man.
Oh, I hope he doesn't miss a kick now in Baltimore after we're talking about this.
Right, yeah. With the game on the line, Bill's
Yeah,
got a chance to go to 4-0. They drive down at the end of the fourth quarter to get into field goal range, and he's got to make like a 40-yarder, and he just shanks it.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Like in the playoff game against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Remember, he could have was that going to tie the game? But then give the Chiefs the ball back with over a minute to go. I think that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, and that one kick was enough to like have everybody sour on him.
Yep.
And that's probably why we're having this conversation even now.
Yep.
He's my guy, though. I'm putting it down. I'm sticking with Tyler Bass.
He's definitely not the worst. There's way worse that have already been cut.
Yeah.
What was it? The Giants kicker that missed 2 in the opener and got cut? I don't even know who his name is, but
Well,
Brian Dable was not happy.
Graham Gano got hurt, and I know that. And that caused the
Kickers.
Debacle in week 2.
Talking about kickers.
Yeah, I know.
But Bills fans, going back to Scott Norwood,
Well,
who was a great kicker, just missed the big one.
twice.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Okay, anyway, moving forward, as we mentioned, Baltimore week 4, more prime time here for the Bills. It's Sunday Night Football on NBC, 8:20 p.m. kickoff, M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Your weather, some clouds, but mostly clear. High of 76 on Sunday. Winds light to the northeast. Betting line here, Bills are opening as underdogs, getting 2.5 points, plus 110 on the money line, over under a 45.5. Pretty interesting the way it is. From that perspective, and even from the game perspective, when we get into our prediction of the game itself, I don't understand that. I think the Bills, as it stands right now, have looked like the better team. They are the better team. It's kind of surprising that, in my mind, that they're
3-point
perceived underdog.
swing for being on the road. Home team Ravens. That's what 3 points in the NFL they say for the lines makers.
Yes, but
and Ravens looked amazing. Down against Dallas. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, strong defense. I mean, it's going to be a test.
Yeah, I mean, they looked great for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter in Dallas, they gave up 19 and won by 3. It was very close.
True, yeah, that's true.
And then against the Raiders in week 2, they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead and lost.
The Raiders team that got crushed by Carolina and Andy Dalton.
But then in KC, like we mentioned earlier, Isaiah Likely, if he's in, that's a tie game in Kansas City. He goes to overtime. So I don't know. This Ravens team, you just know they're going to be run heavy, and you got to watch out for Lamar. And Derrick Henry is very powerful, and the Bills really haven't faced that type of game. I mean, Kyler Murray is a running quarterback, but didn't seem like he ran a whole lot, or Lamar is going to run a lot. And then Zay Flowers is still sitting there. Watch out for him. And Mark Andrews, he's been very quiet. So they have weapons, and their defense is very physical. So I still think they're a good team. I still think they're going to be a playoff team.
well, you guys have been
No doubt. Yeah.
Well, you guys have been exposed to it a little bit on other platforms here, but perhaps the people here over on the Bills Weekly side but don't know. I have a working theory that the Ravens don't show up when it matters most, more or less, in these big type situations.
Well, hopefully they don't.
I just,
The Ravens don't, or Lamar Jackson doesn't.
well, they want to do the win by the team, die by the team thing. I'm going by the team thing here. So, because Lamar ain't out there on defense, I can tell you that much, for an example. Look, I don't know. Dallas had no business even remotely having a shot last week, in my mind, the way that they played 75% of that game. And you get down to the final couple moments of that game, and they're down by 3. And I don't know. And then they cough up what should be an easy victory against the Raiders. And look, for better or worse, I thought they played better than the Chiefs on that opening game of the year, and they didn't come away with a victory. And so, to me, I have a hard time believing that they're gonna, frankly, beat the Bills.
Imagine if they did blow that game against Dallas.
Yeah.
Where they'd be right now.
Right.
They're not as desperate as they would have been, which is good for the Bills, I think, going into this game. But it's a preview of a potential AFC championship. It's, it's a chance for the Bills to really separate from the rest of the AFC, along with Kansas City, assuming Kansas City wins this week too, to go 4-0. It's as big a game you'll find in week 4, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of the other ones off the top of my head. It's like Thursday nights, like Cowboys and Giants.
Yeah. Watch out for the Giants in that game, by the way.
Even the Monday night games next week are rough. I know the one is like
Seattle.
Tennessee, Miami, I think,
And
or
then
something.
Seattle plays the other one.
Yeah. This is like the headliner this week. It's not even a debate in my mind. So
Seahawks Lions for the second game of the doubleheader on Monday.
Undefeated Seahawks.
that's true.
So, so it's actually a pretty good matchup, I would say. And
But it doesn't carry the same weight that
It doesn't have the same star power
that
marquee
Bills and
value.
Ravens do.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're just looking at everything here that we were like literally talking about, right? In terms of, especially on the AFC side of it, with the teams who are undefeated still in Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Kansas City. I mean, this will be a really big indicator, I think, of where things lie, no matter what. If Baltimore does come out and gets the win, so be it. I'll have to tip my cap and come back here like I have once this year already and eat crow, but in the negative way.
You like
for
the Bills.
here.
You're real confident.
Yeah,
in the Bills.
I don't understand how they can necessarily be a dog. I get that they're on the road, and I get that, we still think Baltimore is this, at the very least, divisional round level team, but they have a negative point differential. The Bills just are killing it right now in that sense. They've played better. The eye test for me, they've looked better than Baltimore. I gotta roll with the Bills here. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but like, I don't foresee Buffalo ever being down by ever more than a possession in this game if they're down.
Well, it would kind of be good if they were trailing in the fourth quarter with all these Ravens fourth quarter struggles.
Right.
But no, I mean, obviously I'd like to be leading have the entire game. But yeah, I'm more worried than you are, I would say.
I can tell both of you are.
I'm worried just because, look, this is the NFL. You can't think you got it figured out. That's why going into last night's game, the Jags are coming in. They beat them last year in London or wherever the heck they played over there in Europe. And, Jags are going to be hungry because they've gotten off this slow start. And, up until last night, none of the Bills' wins were super impressive. So all these things were leaning to have concern, and the Bills just annihilated them. So now we come into this week, and it's almost like you wipe the slate clean. I hope we're sitting here next week talking about a Bills win, and they're 4-0, because then after that would be I would have so much more confidence in this team if they're able to do that than I do sitting here right now. And I feel pretty good about them. But they're tied with the Jets in the AFC East. The Jets have the Broncos coming to town next week. And then the Jets have the Vikings, and then it's Bills-Jets on, October 14th.
Yep.
So just from a divisional standpoint, assuming that Miami and New England are going to be out of the picture, it's a big week. The Bills could find themselves if they don't beat the Ravens, could find themselves one game back of the Jets, assuming the Jets beat the Broncos at home.
Well, they'd be tied at that point.
3-1.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they just lost the game. So we're one game clear of the Jets. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the Jets, tough game on the road against the Vikings, and then the Bills go down to the Meadowlands or wherever the hell the Jets play now.
Yep, still the Meadowlands.
Is it still the Meadowlands?
Technically speaking.
Same stadium, different name.
Well, new stadium, different whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Remember when the Giants and Jets shared well, do they still share the stadium? Yeah. It's such a weird thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the New Jersey Giants and Jets. So,
Yeah.
so I guess for me, the way I view this game, I do think it actually, I guess technically, if you're the betting side of it, goes under. I think the Bills win 24-20. I think it's a pretty tight game, all things considered. I know it sounds a little bit crazy after the way I'm talking. I do think, though, that there's just been, I know, back-to-back blowouts, kind of the way that the Bills have it. I don't see that exactly happening in the NFL to have a third straight blowout.
Do you have our predictions from last week?
I have mine from last week.
Kyle and I were both something like 34-28.
Something like that. I know I was 31-16.
You were 34-28.
Yeah.
I think I was 27-23.
So Paul was the only one that saw that blowout coming.
In a way. But I think this one's going to be a little bit closer. Yeah, I mean, I'll just show everybody. I printed out the schedule. I have my predictions for me personally on the side and then the actual result on the other. So but I'm going 24-20. Bills get the win over Baltimore. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. Perhaps, like we've been saying, a preview of what's to come in January. But I have all the confidence, I guess, to go in the Rolodex here. It might sound like Bill Lambier talking, but I have all the confidence in the world that the Bills get it done.
I'll say Bills 24, Ravens 23.
Ooh, all right.
Come on a walk-off field
Tyler
goal.
Bass field goal.
It's going to happen. We talked about it. You just know it's coming.
Exactly. I've been
But
talking
he'll
all
make
that.
it. I got the Bills winning by 1.
There you go.
Oh, man. Jeez. I think that the Ravens defense is going to have their hands full because they don't know where the ball's going when Allen fades back. It could go to 8 different places.
Can't just double-team Stephon Diggs like
Right, yeah. And then, James Cook has established the ground game. I think we're going to score points against Baltimore. And the question to me is, can the Bills' defense stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on the ground, even more so than passing? And, I think that the answer is yes. I think it's going to be Bills 28, Ravens 18.
Ooh. You're going bigger than both of us there.
Bring it on.
All right.
I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, too.
I love it. So, hey, I guess that's what happens when we got the good vibes rolling.
Yeah.
Momentum's a very real thing.
Remember last year this time, or maybe it was even a couple more weeks into the season?
Yeah.
When we were like, they're not going to make the playoffs. This team is terrible. McDermott's got to go.
Yeah.
And Dorsey was
Yeah,
awful.
Ken Dorsey. Well, that was a big change, I
How about
think.
Joe Brady? Man, his play calling's been great.
Yep.
And how about this year? Sean McDermott's not calling the defense. It's Bobby Babich. And
Well, that's something that we talked about not last year, but even before we started the podcast, was about how the defense tends to be better when McDermott doesn't have the pressure of having to call it.
yeah, and it's clearly thriving.
I
So
never liked head coaches calling the plays because somebody needs to manage the game as a whole. It's not like, McDermott can't communicate with the defensive play caller, coordinator, and say, hey, look, we need to get more pressure, or whatever it is. It's not, but to be involved in looking at the play sheet and calling the play every time while you're trying to manage the game, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, here's looking at you, Dallas.
Yeah, right.
Something we all can love saying around here. So,
Yep.
All right, guys. I think that about does it for Bills Weekly then for this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. You can find Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com, the F1 YouTube channel, and all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Amazon Music. We'll be back next Monday, back to our normal time at 10 a.m. to recap Sunday Night Football and hopefully Bills victory and moving to 4-0. Enjoy the week, everybody. Let's go Buffalo.